students. In today's lecture, we will continue with the agriculture practices in crop production. In last lecture, we discussed about soil preparation, selection of seeds, sowing and applying fertilizers. Today, we start with irrigation. First of all, tell me, what is irrigation? The supply of water to crops at different intervals is known as irrigation. Dear students, why irrigation is important? It is important because plants need water for their growth and preparation of food, for germination of seeds, for transport of nutrients to each part of the plant, and for protecting the crop from both hot air currents and frost. Next come, what are the sources of irrigation? In our country, rain is one of the source of water for crops, but it is not a reliable source as it varies from time to time. Therefore, other sources of water have been found out. The other sources of water for irrigation are wells, tube, ponds, lakes, rivers, dams, canals and reservoirs. Now comes, what are the methods of irrigation? The water available in a source is delivered to the crop by using various methods. These methods are categorized into traditional method and modern method of irrigation. Let's start with traditional methods. In traditional methods, water is lifted up by different methods from the well, tube or any other source of water to deliver to the fields. The various traditional methods are moat, rahat, that is water wheel, then comes chain pump, dhekli, tube and swinging basket. Human or animal labor is used in these methods. These methods are cheaper but lead to wastage of water. On the other hand, modern methods of irrigation help us to use water economically. The two most common modern methods of irrigation are the sprinkler system and the drip irrigation method. So first we start with the sprinkler system. As you can see in the diagram, perpendicular pipes having rotating nozzle on their tops or joined to the main pipe at different intervals, at regular intervals we can say. When water is pumped through the main pipe under pressure, it comes out from the revolving nozzles and is sprinkled like rain on the crops. This method is very useful on the uneven land and sandy soil. Next method is the drip system. In this system, as you can see in the picture, very small holes are made on the pipe so that water delivered drop by drop just near the roots of plants. This method is very useful in the areas where availability of water is poor and is the best technique for watering fruit plants, gardens and trees. Water is not wasted in this system, but this system is very expensive. After irrigation, the next step in crop production is weeding. What is weeding? The process of removing weeds from a field is called weeding. Now the question is, what are weeds? These are the undesirable plants that grow along with crops. Most common example of weeds are grass, chenopodium, that is bathua, amaranthus, that is cholai, and wild oat. Weeding is important because if weeds are not removed, then they compete with crop plants for water, nutrients, space and light therefore reduce the crop yield. So it is important to remove these weeds. Now what are the different methods for removing the weeds? There are two methods, one is manual weeding and second one is using weedicides. Manual weeding means pulling out the weeds by hand or by cutting them close to the ground with the help of tools like trowel, then hoe and harrow. Second method is using weedicides. Now what are weedicides? These are the chemicals that destroy the weeds but not the main crop. Common examples, or we can say commonly used weedicides, are 2,4-D, then Delapon, Metachlor, etc. These chemicals are diluted with water and then sprayed in the fields by using hand sprayer or by an aircraft. So this is all about the weeds and weeding. Now next step is crop protection. Cultivated crops are often attacked by rodents, termites or insects. Rodents means rats, they eat the grains, whereas termites and insects damage crops as well as the grains. Birds and stray animals, they also destroy the standing crop. And so stray animals can be protected by erecting a fence, whereas birds can be scared away by erecting the scarecrows. As you can see in the diagram, scarecrows are the effigies made up of hay in the shape of human being, placed at different locations in the field to scare away the birds. Then pests, insects and rodents can be controlled by using pesticides, insecticides and rodenticides. These are the poisonous chemical substances that kill pests, insects and rodents without affecting the plant. The most commonly used insecticides are BHC, malathion, polythion, etc. Now dear students, the crop is mature and it's time to harvest it. Now what is harvesting? Harvesting means cutting and gathering the crops. It is done either manually using a sickle or by using machine called harvester. Pongal, Baisakhi, Holi, Bihu are some common harvest festivals celebrated in India. After harvesting, the grains are separated from the plant either manually or using thresher or using combine. Nowadays, as you can see in the diagram, here the grains are separated manually. Here the stalks, they are bitten on the drum, and in this way grains, they are separated from the stalks. Next comes the thresher. Thresher is a machine that is used for separating the grains from the stalks. Nowadays, combine is used for both harvesting and threshing. As you can see, the combine harvests the crops as well as it removes the grains from the stalks. So nowadays combine is used as it can do both the works. After that, grains are separated from the chaff. This is known as winnowing, and it can be done either manually or by using the winnowing machine. How is it done manually? As you can see in the diagram, there is a dropping of grains and chaff mixture on the ground from a height. The seeds being heavier fall vertically down, while the chaff being lighter makes a separate heap, and in this way we can distinguish or we can separate both chaff and the grains. As the chaff is lighter, so it will blown away by the wind. Now the grains are separated, so they need to be stored. Before the other way of separating the grains from the chaff is by using a machine that is known as the winnowing machine. As you can see in the diagram, in this the grains, they are separated from the chaff. Now the grains need to be stored properly so that they can be available throughout the year. They need to be protected from moisture, insects, rats and microorganisms. So to remove the moisture, crop grains are dried in the sun and then packed in jute bags or metallic bins. Large scale storage of grains is done in silos and granaries. As you can see in the diagram, these are the large metallic bins which are used to store the grains, and grains, they are also stored in jute bags and then placed in the granaries. So these are the methods of storing grains for a long period of time. Now these are the various steps in crop production. I hope it is clear to each and everyone. Now our next topic is crop improvement. As the population is increasing day by day, so to meet the requirement of the people, crop yield need to be improved, means need to be increased. This can be done by using breeding techniques, and it is known as hybridization. Now the question is, what is hybridization? It is the process of producing new varieties of plants by crossbreeding two different varieties. For example, if the plant breeder wants to develop a variety having both the characteristics, that is high yield and resistance to diseases, then they have to choose two varieties, one having high yield and another is resistant to diseases. After crossbreeding, the new plant will have both the characteristics. So this is one of the way by which we can increase the production. Now next comes the nitrogen cycle. As you know, nitrogen is the most abundant constituent of air, that is 78%, but it can't be used as such by the living organisms. So we need to convert it into a usable form, and this fixing and releasing of nitrogen in the organism and environment is known as nitrogen fixation. Now we start with the cycle. First step of nitrogen cycle is nitrogen fixation. It may be biological nitrogen fixation or atmospheric nitrogen fixation. Atmospheric nitrogen fixation occurs due to high energy produced during lightning. The biological nitrogen fixation is done by living organisms like rhizobium. Rhizobium lives in the root nodules of leguminous plants, and both these are beneficial to each other. This association is known as mutualism or symbiosis. Then it converts atmospheric nitrogen into NH3, that is the ammonia. Second step is nitrification. In this, NH3 is first converted into nitrites by nitrosomonas. And then nitrites are further converted into nitrates by nitrobacter. These nitrates are used up by the plants, and these plants are further eaten by the animals. When the plant or the animal die, they form decaying organic matter. This decaying organic matter is converted into ammonia, NH3, and this is known as ammonification. But sometimes nitrates are not consumed by the plants. In that case, nitrates are converted back into atmospheric nitrogen with the help of group of microbes known as pseudomonas. This process is called denitrification. Thus, nitrogen gets cycled in the nature. This is known as nitrogen cycle. I hope it is clear to each and everyone. Now, come to our next topic, that is food from animals. As you all know that animals are reared on large scale for food and other purposes. This is known as animal husbandry. On the basis of the food and food products, the animals are grouped into the following categories. First one is milk or milk yielding animals. Second one is meat and egg yielding animals. And last one is the honey producing insects. So first we start with the milk or milk yielding animals. Cow, buffalo, goat and camel are milk producing animals. Milk is used to prepare butter, ghee, curd and cheese. Next category is meat and egg yielding animals. Chicken, duck and turkey give both meat and egg. Some water animals such as fish, shrimps, prawns and lobster provide meat. The rearing of water animals for food is known as pisciculture. Next comes the honey producing insects. We get honey from honeybees, and the rearing of honeybees on large scale is known as apiculture. So this is all about today's lecture. I think it is clear to everyone. Thank you. Goodbye.